Good morning, everybody. It is 7 o'clock. You are very welcome to join us on The Breakfast Show here on Sky News this Wednesday morning. Up to 2 million people are expected to fly over the next few days. The Jubilee weekend is expected to be one of the busiest ever for Britain's airports. But the experience of many passengers has been chaos, queues and confusion. Hundreds of flights have been cancelled and some families have been told by text message at the airport that their holidays are off, or even escorted off planes after they'd already boarded. What's that about? The government is accusing airlines and operators of seriously overselling flights and holidays. In a few minutes, I'm going to be speaking to the Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab. It's Wednesday, the 1st of June. Picture punch. Transport Secretary demands a meeting with aviation bosses to find out what's gone wrong and sort out the holiday chaos.
We're here at Dublin Airport, where under pressure management have to today reveal a plan to avoid a repeat of chaotic scenes here this weekend.
Prime Minister fights to save his job as another Conservative MP demands a vote on his leadership, and his own ethics advisor warns the ministerial code is at risk of ridicule. The Queen's jet was forced to abort its landing because of a lightning storm as she travelled to Windsor ahead of her Platinum Jubilee.
I'm here at the Mall by Buckingham Palace, where royal superfans have been camping outside to bag the best spots ahead of the Jubilee.
Ukraine are promised a Hampden roar as they prepare for an emotional return to international football against Scotland.
You may go to college, you may go to school, you may have a...
Shaking all over, the stars turn out for the premiere of Elvis at the British Film Institute. Also coming up on the programme for you this morning, wherever you're watching us around the world, a carnival for the Queen's Jubilee. We'll hear from the team behind this 100-foot float with crests, crowns and carriages designed to reflect regal elements of the monarchy. And Dog of War, joined in the studio by journalist Danielle Sheridan and her new friend Andy, who she rescued while covering the war in Ukraine. Morning, everybody. This weekend is expected to be one of the busiest ever for Britain's airports. Families up and down the country have been looking forward to a half-term holiday, but have instead been hit with long queues, delays and cancellations. British Airways, EasyJet and TUI have all axed flights, and we've seen chaos at airports from Stansted to Manchester. The government is blaming airlines and operators for overbooking and failing to prepare. And the problems are industry-wide. Stephen was at Dublin Airport for us yesterday. He's there again today. Now, I know that the government in Ireland, you were telling us yesterday, Stephen, wanted some answers from the airlines and the airport. Did they get them?
Well, ironically enough, and when we're talking about delays, that plan itself was delayed. The government ended up giving management here at Dublin Airport another 24 hours to reveal what the details of this plan actually entails. So later today, the chief executive here at Dublin Airport is actually going to appear before an Irish Parliamentary Transport Committee and tell politicians who are pretty furious with the airport here how exactly they're going to alleviate the sort of scenes we saw this weekend just gone, where 1,400 passengers, that's the latest tally, missed flights here at a major European capital city airport. So Dublin Airport, we know, say they're going to work at triaging passengers when they arrive at the airport. They're going to work in providing more security lanes, and they're going to redeploy staff from backroom positions to help out security staff. But we should hear a bit more about that later on today. But it's a pattern that obviously we've seen repeated right across the UK as well, and it looks like it's continuing this morning, particularly at Manchester Airport. Plenty of people there taking to social media this morning, reporting long delays at the various terminals there. Here's a flavour of what passengers there yesterday morning had to experience.
After we queued up for so long, we saw the screen again and it said cancelled. We went and asked one of the TUI operators and they just said, yes, it's the whole holiday's cancelled. That's all we knew about it, and we're still in the dark now. We don't know why.
TUI asked us to come 4 hours before, which is an hour longer than usual, and we've just been stood in a queue for an extra hour. There was no check-in staff to check us in.
You know what, it's not good when you're waiting that long, is it? When you're getting told to come 4 hours and we haven't got the test on, that's important, that.
Busy again this morning at Manchester Airport, and we'll get more from there a bit later on. But of course, all of this is down due essentially to staffing shortages. Airports like Dublin, which let go 1,000 staff during the pandemic, many other airports in the UK, but also further afield like Amsterdam and in Toronto as well. All these airports were ghost towns, of course, for the guts of 2 years. So they let go a lot of highly skilled staff, and they're now facing recruitment issues and vetting issues, in particularly for security staff. So here at Dublin Airport, they're approaching 100% of pre-pandemic passenger numbers, but they only have about 70% of the staff there to try and cope with it. And all eyes now turning to what measures can be put in place ahead of this weekend. It's a Jubilee bank holiday weekend in the UK. It's a bank holiday here in Ireland as well.
Hey, Stephen, thank you. In other news, the Prime Minister is fighting to save his job this morning. His own ethics advisor has asked him to explain why he believes he's not broken the ministerial code after being fined for a lockdown breach. Another Conservative MP is publicly calling for Boris Johnson to go. As former party leader William Hague put it, the fuse is getting closer to the dynamite. Goodness. It would take 54 letters of no confidence from Conservative MPs to trigger a leadership vote. 28 MPs are now calling for Mr Johnson to go now. That's more than half the required number. Sky News has identified 11 more who are critical of the Prime Minister, but not yet publicly calling for him to go. 2 others have told us they are unhappy with his performance, but don't think now is the time for a vote. That makes 41 MPs who have publicly questioned his position, including former Cabinet Ministers Andrea Leadsom and John Stevenson. We'll be putting that to the Deputy Prime Minister very shortly. Before that, though, the Queen is safely back at Windsor ahead of the Jubilee celebrations after her flight was delayed by a lightning storm. The pilot was forced to abandon his first attempt to land at RAF Northolt in North London. Buckingham Palace says all of the correct procedures were followed before she eventually touched down and was driven home. Sabah is on the Mall, where people are already gathering for the festivities, which start in earnest tomorrow. Hi, Sabah. Good morning. I can see the sun shining this morning. It was terrible weather, though, yesterday, and people still camping out.
Yes, that's right. And as you mentioned earlier in the programme, the Queen's plane aborted yesterday on its arrival back to England from Scotland, her home in Balmoral, but she has arrived okay. That's being reported in the Sun newspaper. But Kay, as you say, it's happening all here on the Mall by Buckingham Palace, where royal superfans have been camping out here since yesterday ahead of the Jubilee celebrations. Now, we haven't had the chance to speak to any of them just yet. Some of them are still fast asleep, but my colleague Ashna Harinag was speaking to them last night before they went to bed, and she spoke to the likes of Angie and Pat, who have come all the way from near Toronto in Canada with their 2 daughters, and they are here for the celebrations. This is their 3rd event that they have attended, their 3rd royal event, the first 2 being the royal weddings of the Cambridges and the Sussexes. And they've stayed here despite the downpour, which is astonishing. And they, as I say, arrived yesterday and will be staying here until the military parade, which will be happening tomorrow. And that is one of the first events that will be kicking off here for the Jubilee celebrations, with 18, I think, of the working royals on that balcony, not including the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Some of the other events that will be happening is 3,000 lights will be lit across the UK and Commonwealth. And the one that I'm looking forward to the most is the party at the Palace, which I'm sure our campers here as well will be able to listen to from where they are positioned. The likes of Diana Ross, George Ezra, Alicia Keys will be performing there. Now, it's not guaranteed that the Queen will be able to attend all of these events given her recent mobility issues, but what we do know is that it's looking to be quite the weekend, Kay.
OK, for now, thank you. Thanks a lot. So looking forward to that. Well, Her Majesty is the first British monarch to celebrate a Platinum Jubilee, marking 70 years of service. Let's tell you what's happening over the next 4 days. Bit of a headline there from Saba. Kicking things off tomorrow morning, the 1st Battalion Irish Guards and more than 1,200 members of the Household Division will take part in the Queen's birthday parade, also known as Trooping the Colour. The event marks the Sovereign's official birthday. The parade will end with the Queen and other members of the royal family appearing on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, or we certainly hope so. And a fly past as well is what we're promised. Over 2,000 towns, villages and cities across the UK, as well as each of the capital cities of the Commonwealth, will light a beacon to mark the Jubilee. Then on Friday, there's a national service of Thanksgiving. I'm going to St Paul's for you. And the Queen would usually be expected at the Derby on Saturday morning. Not yet known if she'll go this year. It's thought that she probably won't, because we believe that is the day that she'll be meeting Lilibet, her youngest great-grandchild, when the Sussexes bring her along to meet the Queen. And also, a special concert will take place in the evening at Buckingham Palace. That is on Sunday. Millions taking part in a big Jubilee lunch with street parties, barbecues and other events around the country. And finally, the Platinum Jubilee pageant will see thousands of performers process down the Mall in central London. Looking forward to all of that. Hopefully you are too. Now, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has said the situation in the Donbass is extremely difficult. Ukrainian forces are gradually being pushed out of the eastern city of Severodonetsk. Alistair standing by for us in Kiev. Good morning, Alistair. Latest from you, sir?
Morning. Yeah, I think difficult is probably an understatement. The Russian forces have the momentum in the east of the country. The fighting in Severodonetsk is ongoing this morning. When you and I spoke yesterday, around half of the city was under Russian control. By the time I spoke to the regional governor late yesterday afternoon, that was in excess of 70%. And so the Russians are bit by bit taking this key city. It is possible, we haven't had this confirmed, that the Ukrainians are actually performing some sort of controlled retreat, because the neighbouring city, the twin city, Lysychansk, which is just across a river that divides the two, is on slightly higher ground. So it is possible that they are retreating in order to hold that higher ground and take up defensive positions for what will be another fight ahead. But Russia is making ground in the east, as I say, and it is progressing towards its objectives of trying to capture the entire Luhansk region. And that will be Russia's biggest victory in the conflict to date. No doubt it'll be a moment for the Kremlin to try and celebrate, and then we will see what they do next, whether they decide to push on, whether they take a strategic pause, or perhaps even whether they use it as a moment to float the prospect of negotiations. But there is no sense amongst Ukrainians and the Ukrainian government that they are willing to negotiate away any of their land at the moment. The fight goes on. OK. Alistair, thank you.
Well, as we've been hearing, Russia is tightening its grip on Severodonetsk. Ukrainian officials concede they've lost control of around 70% of the city. Our special correspondent, Alex Crawford, has travelled to Lysychansk, a town just across the river from Severodonetsk.
Lysychansk is on fire. The Russians are headed this way, and there seems to be little they can do to stop them. The city is coming under relentless shelling. Its streets are largely empty of people. Those still here cower and emerge just to get supplies under constant explosions. Do you not get scared of those explosions? It's very scary, Yulia tells us. If something happens, we just have to rush inside, she says. There are families still here, all exhausted by this never-ending bombardment. It's a stalemate, Yelena says. 2 weeks before the war started, an old relative told me it's going to happen. Can you imagine in the 21st century and we have a war and we speak the same language? The city's twinned with Severodonetsk, with just the Seversky Donets River dividing them. They're watching and listening to the unremitting march on their neighbours and know that they're next.
A number of these homes were just burnt out entirely. I mean, this one's just one charred remains, very little left of it. every room destroyed and just ashes and embers.
So many in the Donbass are weary of war. They don't want a divide, they just want the brutality to stop. I just want peace, she says. I just want them to leave us alone. But it doesn't look like that is happening anytime soon. Alex Crawford, Sky News in the Donbass.
Was our special correspondent Alex Crawford, of course, on the front line. You can watch the full version of her report on our website at skynews.com and also on our YouTube channel. Deputy Prime Minister Dominic Raab is with us this morning. Good morning, good morning.
Good morning,
Thanks for joining us on the programme. Ukraine playing Scotland tonight, actually, aren't they, up in Scotland? Who do you want to win?
I always support the British team, I'm afraid, but I hope the Ukrainians play well as well.
OK, there we go. Talk to me. As I said, big guns are out today. What's the atmosphere like at the top at the moment?
Do you know what? It's fine, and of course there's all the Westminster froth, and I'm not decrying the importance of the issues at hand. But the reality is we've got a load of big issues we're grappling with. Less than 2 years to the next election, I think we can all say, given the time limits. We've got the cost of living package out, the £15 billion Rishi Sunak announced. There's all these issues you've just been reporting on in Ukraine, and I think the Prime Minister's leadership has been critical to that. I'm very focused. I've been talking this week about the efforts we're getting to ramp up work for prisoners to get them on the straight and narrow and to cut reoffending. And there's been all the distractions of Partygate. I think the accountability has been addressed. I think the transparency has been addressed. We're getting on with the job. I think that's what our constituents expect. Should prisoners be allowed to celebrate the Jubilee? I said this, I was in H&P Exeter, and I think that if prisoners, for example, I was icing cupcakes with Union Jack baubles and things on them.
Of course you were.
And of course I was. And that's a part of the Clinks restaurant in prisons, which I've quadrupled the number in prisons. And it gives offenders the skills to get jobs on release. And we know they're a third less likely to reoffend. So bottom line, it makes our streets safer. Actually, if offenders are willing to take a second chance to turn their lives around and start doing constructive things, and if taking part in the Jubilee celebrations gives them a bit of positive motivation in that regard, I don't think it's a bad thing.
OK, back to Partygate. The PM must be worried about his future, despite what you're saying, especially given what we've heard from Lord Geidt, who says he believes that the Prime Minister has potentially broken the ministerial code after being fined for a lockdown breach. Why do you think he hasn't?
Well, the Lord Geidt raised that issue and the PM has responded to it in a letter, and he's been clear that in relation to the single fixed penalty notice, he hadn't intentionally broken the law, and his attendance at that gathering, as has been well rehearsed, was inadvertent. So Lord Geidt is really important. He's a senior figure. We've actually been working for months to reinforce his role. That's been done by agreement between Number 10 and Lord Geidt. But actually, I think those questions have been answered both in general, but also now specifically in the letter the PM has sent. And as I said, we're getting on with the job, cost of living, economy.
But you have
Ukraine.
Just acknowledged that the Prime Minister broke the law, and that's against the ministerial code.
Not quite that simple, because there have been examples in the past. I'm not sure raking over all the precedents is particularly helpful, but there are where, similarly, I remember Baroness Scotland, I think it was 2009.
Yeah, she wasn't Prime Minister, though.
No, but she was a minister, and these rules are meant to apply equally, and the point was she hadn't acted deliberately or intentionally, and therefore Gordon Brown took the view that the code hadn't been broken. So I'm just saying there are precedents for this, and I've explained the specific reasons why, in the absence of deliberately breaking the code or doing something deliberately, and I think it's clear from the circumstances of this particular gathering, where he turned up, was there for 10 minutes, was unaware that it was a surprise birthday cake for him, and all the stuff that's been well rehearsed. I don't think that was a deliberate a deliberate breach of the rules, and that's the key point.
But it is breaking the law, and that is against the ministerial code.
Well, it's not that simple, actually. And I think the PM...
Lord Geidt thinks it is.
No, he's asking... Actually, in fairness, what I think Lord Geidt raised was why in the House of Commons this hadn't been explicitly addressed. Now, of course, in the House of Commons, and I was there next to the PM, he's asked questions from all sides of the House. They'll focus on the bits they want to focus on, but it's a legitimate point to seek clarification on. The PM's provided it. And as I say, amidst all of this process, which has now been going on for a long time, and every question, I think, has been fairly answered by the PM, we're getting on with the job. And I do think that that's what our constituents, that's what the public expect. And there's a lot on the government's plate with the cost of living, with Ukraine, the law enforcement, the crime-fighting agenda. But we're not ducking those issues. The PM has not ducked those issues. He's addressed them squarely.
But there could be a vote of no confidence or a vote of confidence, depending on which way you look at it, as early as next week. That, according to William Hague, who says he thinks that Boris Johnson's in real trouble.
Well, look, I like William Hague, I respect him, but he's a commentator in The Telegraph now and, of course, a senior figure in his own right and previous leader of the Conservative Party. But I'm just not going to comment on the commentary. That's not my job as Deputy Prime Minister. It's not my job as a Member of Parliament. It's to serve my constituents, and that's what we're doing on the cost of living, on crime fighting, and on the situation in Ukraine, which needs very careful management at a very sensitive time as well.
Do you think that we could find ourselves in a position where there is a vote of confidence in the Prime Minister as early as next week?
No.
Why?
I just don't see... allow me to just give you my view. I think the Westminster Bubble and Village whips this stuff up. I'm not saying it's not serious and significant, but we've dealt with all of those issues. The Prime Minister's dealt with all those issues. It does feel like a lot of commentary building up this issue when actually, when I talk to MPs, and when I talked across the House of Commons about the issues that I'm taking forward, a new victims bill, parole reform, Bill of Rights, the crime-fighting agenda, particularly rehabilitation in prisons, they want to see us driving forward that agenda. And to be honest with you, votes of no confidence, leadership contests, all of that is yet more Westminster talking to itself, not talking to the public, not talking to our constituents. And I think the vast majority of MPs respect, recognise and agree with that. The two people in the House of Commons who want a leadership contest, who talk about it every time in the House of Commons, are Keir Starmer and Ian Blackford for the SNP.
And at least 40 of your MPs.
But in fact, they're not asking for it because they think it's in the public interest or indeed in the Conservative interest. They think there's some political gain for them in doing so. And again, that's a point which I think senior members of the Parliamentary Party are also making.
And at least 40 of your MPs?
At least 40 of my MPs...
want a leadership challenge?
Look, I don't know what the numbers are. I don't think anyone does. I doubt it's that high.
Really?
In terms of letters. But the truth is, I don't know. But the reality is, there's over 350 Conservative MPs, and I think that the overwhelming swathe of the party recognise what I'm saying, which is our constituents, the public, want us to get on with the job. All of the people who want to see us in a leadership contest, most, are on the other side of the benches in the House of Commons, Labour and the SNP. Yeah,
but it looks as though it's what certainly by the end of the month is what many of your colleagues are saying.
How could anyone possibly know that?
Perhaps as early as next week. How can you possibly know that
it won't be? I don't know that.
So why did you say no?
I can't prove a negative to you, Kay, and you're always the most guileful of interviewers. I mean that in a positive way.
OK, I'll take it in a positive way then.
But the reality is, all I'm telling you, because I talk to MPs every day, because I talk to the whole range of MPs on all sides of the party, and I know what they're saying to me.
Might be saying something different to somebody else, though.
Could be. But, of course, the media will magnify the negative voices.
Oh, it's always the media's
fault. No, I didn't say
fault.
that. I didn't say that. I was being fair and judicious, Kay. I was just saying I think sometimes the silent majority do get neglected a little bit by the media. OK. COVID-style news conferences on the economy. When are they going to start? I don't know. That will be for the comms team in Number 10 to decide, but I do think that... So they are going to happen? Look, I don't know. That's the comms for the Director of Communications and the team there. But actually making sure we are delivering for people with the cost of living is really important. We've got the increase, the cut in national insurance coming in July. You're going to tell me about the 15 billion again? No, I was going to tell you about the tax cut for national insurance coming in July, and then the £400 cash grant for paying energy bills in October, and the fact that we just need to be making sure not just that we're delivering, but also demonstrating what we're doing for people struggling to make ends meet. As a result of your first answer, it made me think, are you suggesting that potentially we could have an early election? No. Definitely not? I think it's very unlikely. OK. And I think, by the way, when the election comes, we'll win it. Of course you do. You wouldn't say otherwise, would you? Travel chaos. What on earth is happening? Well, do you know what? The first thing to say is it's good news that more holidaymakers got the confidence post-COVID pandemic to say, OK, do you know what, we're going to book these flights. There's obviously been a surge in demand. Throughout the pandemic, the government provided, I think it's £8 billion of support. There's been some tweaks to the regulation to make it easier for the airline industry to hire. And I think also there's clearly been a lack of preparation for that surge back of demand of holidaymakers. And Grant Shapps has been talking, the Transport Secretary, has been talking to the industry for months now, saying that this will come and that you need to make sure you've got your recruitment in place. So I know that there's a bit of finger-pointing going on at the moment, but that's the support and that's the advice.
I mean, whose fault is it that kids are sleeping on the floor at Stansted Airport?
I don't think the airline operators have done the recruitment that they should have done and taken the advice that the Transport Secretary gave them.
OK. There's some suggestions that aviation bosses want to access tax records that would help them to recruit staff more quickly rather than going back through all of the previous employers. Is that something the government will look at?
So I don't know the details of that, but I do know that we've made some changes on the regulatory front because we know that there's a demand for recruitment and we want to help the airline industry deal with that. Look, I think it's good news holidaymakers have got the confidence to be taking these trips and holidays, and we do not want to see the scenes or the reports, as you mentioned, of people having to sleep in airports. And we want to work with the industry to facilitate that. But again, in terms of some of the finger-pointing, the Transport Secretary has been talking to the sector for some time now, saying you need to get on with the recruitment to make sure that you've got the capacity, because this demand is coming back.
Yeah. I mean, we're being told that it's likely to get, I'm just looking at the pictures there, it's likely to get worse before it gets better. What can the government do today to help people who...
Well, actually, but why do we always seem to do that? It's actually for the sector to address what is a better problem to have than falling demand, which is increasing demand. But we are providing the support. We've already provided the support. And of course, I'm sure if there are smart things that we can do together with the sector to ease the way and make it easier for holidaymakers, of course we will want to do that.
When are we sending the asylum seekers to Rwanda?
I don't know exactly. There's been talk of next month, where the Home Secretary is working on the operational matters to get that first flight going. I think it will be important. I think people will see then that you don't have the automatic right to come via an unlawful route to the UK without the risk of finding yourself in a different destination, i.e. Rwanda. And I'm not saying it's the whole piece around this. I've never said that. I do think it's an important piece of the jigsaw of dealing with this cruel trade in human misery by those who want to exploit unlawful routes into this country, which we can't be allowing.
And are you completely comfortable that they are Syrians who are going to be sent to Rwanda?
I don't know the nationality.
But are you completely comfortable if they are, which we believe they are?
Well, again, I'm not going to comment on something that I don't have the facts on, but I'm very confident that we'll do this in the right way, we'll have the right processes, human rights compliant, and that Rwanda will be able to deal with these in a decent, humane way.
OK. What are you going to do for the Jubilee?
I've got lots of Jubilee parties. It's quite fun, I think, the community's coming together.
Absolutely.
My street is having a street party, and for me in particular, my boys are 6 and 9. It's quite interesting. 7 and 9, sorry. Goes so quickly.
It does.
It's just quite nice seeing the patriotism and their involvement. My mum was sending me some pictures of 1977 and me, and I'm not going to show you these pictures of me waving.
Oh, dear, have you got them on your phone?
Maybe later.
Which channel will you be watching?
Sky, of course.
OK, that's what we needed to hear. Thank you very much indeed, Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you. Time now for a look at this morning's papers for you. And the Metro remarks on the increasing number of letters of no confidence lodged against the Prime Minister by his fellow Tory MPs. The headline, Boris may be toast. The Telegraph says Mr Johnson's own ethics advisor, Lord Geidt, has asked for him to explain why he believes he hasn't broken the ministerial code. According to The Times, Lord Geidt has said he will resign if he isn't given satisfactory answers. That's Tamara joining us. The Eye reports that the PM has been making phone calls to MPs in an effort to shore up support in a possible no-confidence vote, while the Mail condemns the Conservatives who've already come out, against the PM as rebels without a clue. Tamara is here, as I said. Nothing to see here, says the Deputy Prime Minister.
It's fine.
Move along.
Fine. The mood in the party is fine, says Dominic Raab. Is it fine? Well, it doesn't look very fine because there's obviously this swirling support around the rebels who are putting in letters of no confidence to the Prime Minister. We know that more than 40 Conservative MPs have publicly expressed discontent with him, and that means that we may be dangerously close to the threshold for triggering a confidence vote. And then added to that, you've got, while MPs were already concerned about issues of integrity and probity to do with the Sue Gray report and parties in Downing Street, you've got the Prime Minister's ethics advisor saying, I'm not very happy with his response to getting a fixed penalty notice, and he may well have broken the ministerial rules, which would normally trigger a resignation. So that's unlikely to help. I think what we're seeing at the moment is a concerted attempt to shore up his leadership. Ministers like Dominic Raab and others are saying, look, this is not necessarily a big-scale rebellion. The rebels may trigger this vote and then lose it. And after a few months in which Westminster has been sort of looking inwardly during this Partygate scandal, I think the message that Number 10 are putting out is we can now get past this and focus on the cost of living. I understand that they are planning to do these cost of living press conferences. It's been described to me as putting the government on a war footing about the cost of living, and they're hoping to, if they don't get a confidence vote in the next couple of weeks, yes, to focus on that. I think talk of an early election is a little bit premature because, of course, governments who call elections without any particular purpose sometimes find it doesn't go their way.
Indeed so, as we've seen before. Tomorrow's Take at 9 o'clock. Thank you. Top stories for you this morning. Just hearing there from the Deputy Prime Minister telling this programme the airline industry should have planned better and recruited more staff to cope with the surge in demand for travel. We'll have more on that with one of the unions involved in just a moment. Boris Johnson's own ethics advisor has asked him to explain why he believes he has not broken the ministerial code. 28 Tory MPs are now calling for the PM to go publicly. Queen's jet was forced to abort its landing because of a lightning storm as she travelled to Windsor ahead of the Platinum Jubilee. We're turning now to the disruption many people have been experiencing at airports around the country, joined by the National Officer for Aviation at the Unite Union, and that's Oliver Richardson. Hello to you, Mr Richardson. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. You heard from the Deputy Prime Minister, I'm sure, just a moment ago, telling us it's the airlines' fault, along with the airports, and they need to get their act together.
Yes, I did hear that finger pointing. Essentially, I think there are two parties involved in this. One is the government and the other is the airline industry itself. And both of them have failed passengers and failed those people who work within the industry. So the government should have had far more support for the industry during the pandemic. Other countries did, such as America and Spain, and their industry is recovering a lot better. Ours shed tens of thousands of jobs and simply haven't been able to recruit those. And the industry, there are a number of companies within the industry that use the pandemic to attack terms and conditions and to get rid of jobs. And those actions mean that the industry is now struggling to recruit. It's no longer an attractive industry to work in, and hence we're seeing the shortfall of staff compared with what's needed. So both parties have responsibility. Both are trying to point fingers at the other side. And really, it's about time they got together and found a real plan that could get the industry back on its feet and a much-needed travel and much-needed jobs within the sector.
You heard the Deputy Prime Minister say that they'd come up with £8 billion specifically for the travel sector, aviation sector during the pandemic, and also extended the furlough scheme to many of the airlines while at the same time.
But those were general provisions. They extended the furlough scheme for all companies at a certain point in time. However, we were talking about very specific extension for the furlough scheme for the sector that would carry us through the winter. We raised it with the Minister, we raised it with the DFT, we raised it with the CAA and said, unless you keep those people within the system, you will have a problem come the summer. And obviously, unfortunately, we've been proven correct. But there was no specific package for the industry. There were a few little tweaks for the industry, but no specific package, which means that we're in this woeful situation at the moment.
OK. What's your gripe with BA?
The gripe with BA, well, we have a number of gripes with BA, but they led effectively the charge of the industry in terms of completely changing and restructuring terms and conditions and reducing pay. We are now in a position where we're saying to BA, you need to look at recovering some of those terms and conditions and some of that pay, particularly in light of the cost of living crisis. And obviously our members are very passionate about it, and we as a union are very passionate about saying you need to do the right thing, get yourself out of the mess, do the right thing, treat your staff well. And if they don't, then of course we as a union will support our members absolutely in pursuing those ends.
Is now the right time to be considering strike action, though, given what we're seeing at the airports with people literally sleeping on the floor?
Well, I don't think we're going to make any apology for trying to improve terms and conditions. And in fact, improving terms and conditions would inevitably mean that we would get more people attracted to the industry, and we would solve a number of issues that we face. The issue about strike action, nobody wants to take strike action. It's a question about whether the government and the industry will do the right thing and resolve the issues that our members face. And in fact, those issues are very, very heavily tied up with attracting people to the industry and making sure that we can get the staff in place to deliver a good summer and a good holiday season for many passengers.
Is there support for industrial action?
Well, I think our members are very angry and very frustrated. They're as angry and frustrated about the falling to pieces of the operation and the pressure that they are under as passengers are. So I certainly think there's a real sense of tension that's built up within the sector, and there's a real frustration on our members that the government and the industry are simply not doing the right thing. And they need to focus on trying to find a solution to this. If they do, then hopefully we can have a good summer.
What do you want BA to do?
Well, BA need to do the right thing. They need to look very, very closely at what they've done in terms of their previous actions. They need to find some resolution to that. There are different issues in different areas. If they do that and do the right thing, then we'll be able to get through it. If they don't, then I think we're going to continue to have industrial relations problems.
Good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. Thank you. This is what BA are saying after a deeply difficult, let's see what they said, after a deeply difficult 2 years, which saw the airline lose more than $4 billion, these colleagues were offered a 10% payment for this year, which was rejected. Other parts of the organisation accepted the same offer, acknowledging the position the business still finds itself in. Looking at some of today's other headlines for you now, and people in Bradford have been celebrating after it was named the UK City of Culture for 2025. The city beat fellow finalist County Durham, Southampton and Wrexham. Research by the Sutton Trust has found that the pandemic has made it much harder for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds to go to university, get a job or own a home. The charity says that there should be more support specifically aimed at pupils from poorer families. A French politician has written a letter to a Liverpool supporters group saying that he bitterly regrets that fans were singled out for criticism after the chaos before the Champions League final. Richard Bougui, who is deputy mayor of the area in Paris, where the fan zone was situated, is the first French official to apologise to Liverpool fans publicly. Ukraine will play their first international football match since the start of the war against Scotland at Hampden Park this evening. It's a hugely important game for both countries, with the winners going on to face Wales for a place at the World Cup. We were speaking to the Deputy Prime Minister about that a few moments ago. He says he obviously hopes Ukraine plays well, but he wants Scotland to win. Here's James Matthews.
They arrived in Scotland, truly the team like no other. Ukrainian football players excused the front line in the pursuit of sporting success.
All Ukraine who has this opportunity is going to watch us, and we're going to feel this support. That's 100%. So, and like I said already many times, to be fair, you know, we can speak a lot, but we need to do on the pitch. So that's what we're going to try to do.
The Ukrainian squad came here via training camp in Slovenia. In a country where males their age aren't allowed to leave, domestic players were given a pass at the start of this month. In the past few days, they've been joined by their big names playing abroad. Scots have voiced their support for Ukraine since the Russian invasion. For their nation, bidding to qualify for a World Cup for the first time in 24 years, tonight it's difficult, but it's football.
The Ukrainians have decided that they want to play, they want to try and give their country a lift by their football team performing well. They want to go to the World Cup. but it's a game of football. We want to go to the World Cup too. We've waited a long time to be in this position. The players, our players, the Scottish players are desperate to go to Qatar 2022.
This is the Ukrainian consulate in Edinburgh city centre, and this is a street unofficially named after Ukraine's president. There's no doubting the sympathy in Scotland for the plight of Ukraine and its people. Whoever wins tonight has a playoff against Wales in Cardiff on Sunday. There is a lot riding on this game, though everything is relative. James Matthews, Sky News, Edinburgh.
One day to go until official Platinum Jubilee celebrations begin. Have you made anything special to mark the occasion? And can they live up to these decorations? Here we go. Knitted cakes. Actually, we've got a whole knitted royal family, even a corgi, as well as a life-size cake of the Queen. Her stamp has even been etched into the sand at a beach. There you go. In Northumberland. And Legoland have gone all out with their model Buckingham Palace featuring the red arrows. Red arrows here. That's the tree. I'll tell you more about that tree actually in the coming days. But that is, and they're even putting Her Majesty on the balcony up there at the palace. One hopes that we will be seeing Her Majesty on the balcony during the course of the celebrations. So maybe you baked a cake, knitted a tea cosy, decorated your house. We want to see your pictures. You can send them to me on Twitter at Burley if you would like to, and we will share some of them with our viewers a little bit later on. Now, Royal Navy sailors have spelled out a Jubilee message to the Queen on their carrier flight deck. There you go. ER70. More than 300 sailors spelled out a giant Platinum Jubilee greeting to the Queen on the flight deck of the aircraft carrier HMS Queen Elizabeth. Nearly half the crew of the Navy's flagship stood strong in bracing winds to form the tribute, spelling out ER70 while off the south coast of England. Yes, that wasn't enough to brighten your morning. How about this? The King of Rock and Roll has been given the biopic treatment, with Baz Luhrmann taking the directorial reins. The film stars Austin Butler as the King himself, while Tom Hanks plays his controversial manager. Here's Claire.
Tomorrow, all of America will be talking about Elvis Presley. This is Elvis's story told for the first time with permission from his estate. So all the classics in full swing.
Martin Luther King has been shot to death in Memphis.
That's all right for you.
Tragedy, but it has nothing to do with us.
It has everything to do with us.
But the darker side of Elvis's story manifested in his manipulative manager, played by Tom Hanks.
I wish to promote you, Mr. Presley.
Elvis was always in my life, but I had to find a way that I could make it useful for now. And it's when I added the idea of Colonel Tom Parker, never Colonel, never Tom, never Parker, to the equation. The idea of show and business. And the tragedy and the beauty of the story is they rise together, but when the business gets more than the show, when the business gets more than the art, then tragedy ensues.
This is a Baz Luhrmann roller coaster of a film, the director known for hit movies like Moulin Rouge. And while he may have shied away from some of the more controversial aspects of Elvis's life, fans of the King won't be able to help falling in love with this. Still the best-selling solo artist of all time, and perhaps the most impersonated. So the crowning jewel, Austin Butler's remarkable performance.
It's that tight wire act of wanting to be incredibly specific, but not making it feel like it's been done before. You know, making it feel as though it's happening for the first time right now, and bringing all the raw emotion of a human being to something where you're trying to emulate and be really specific with the performance set. So that's tricky at times.
Well, you may go to college, you may go to school.
Stepping into his blue suede shoes would always be a tall order, but this biopic will no doubt contribute to the King's ever-enduring legacy. Claire Gregory, Sky News.
Well, my next guest will be hoping the travel disruption doesn't affect their plans, as they're set to become the first Britons to travel to Australia on a new £10 POM scheme. After the Second World War, hundreds of thousands of Britons were lured overseas with the offer of cheap tickets. The 2022 version is more limited, with just 200 young people, like these two here, being offered the chance to travel and work in South Australia. Zach is there, and Victoria joining us now from Heathrow Airport. Hi.
Are you all right?
Yeah, how are you two? How excited are you?
Yeah, really excited. Just can't wait to get out there now. It's been a long time waiting, so we're just excited to get out there.
I'm sure. What about you, Victoria? Tell us, you actually met in Australia, didn't you? Oh, we can't hear you, unfortunately, Victoria. I'm not quite sure why. We can hear because...
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, let's just check.
Is that okay?
Can you hear me, Zach?
Yeah, I can hear. Yeah.
Great. So tell me what you're going to do when you get there.
So when we arrive, we're actually staying in Adelaide for a couple of days, and we've got a job round up already. Just about 30 minutes outside of Adelaide in the Adelaide Hills. So we're really excited to get out there, doing a bit of apple picking and stuff. So yeah, really excited to do something new.
Fantastic. It's quite a long flight. How long are you planning to stay there once you get there?
We're looking to do our 88 days and then get our second year visa again, and probably about 3 years or so, and then hopefully do a bit more travelling, maybe around like Asia or Europe or something like that.
Brilliant, brilliant. We can't really hear that well, guys. So what I'm going to do is say good luck, fly safely, and perhaps we can catch up with you at the other end when you get to Australia, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
That will be fantastic. As I said, fly safely. Congratulations, amazing. A new chapter in your young lives.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Take care. Returning now to the celebrations taking place this week to mark the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Among the events taking place, mark the occasion, is a Bollywood-inspired wedding party. Wow, influenced by the royal wedding of Her Majesty, of course, and the Duke of Edinburgh. The pageant's creator, AJ Chabra, and Simi Gupta are with us. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us. I love what you're wearing. Tell me about it.
Thank you. It's a specially designed sari for the Jubilee pageant. We worked with students from Arts University Bournemouth to come up with a... we gave them a brief of what the Queen means to them, and for the last 70 years of her reign, you know. And then they came up with lots of ideas, and then we had Paul Costello to choose the winning designs from the students, and then we designed. I
think Matt can have a good look at that. These are corgis, I'm guessing, aren't they?
Yes. So we've combined all the students' designs
Keep holding
together.
it there for us, and then we can have a good look. So there's corgis there, obviously. Oh, stunning,
I
think the brief for us, Kay, was to make it joyful and playful.
Yeah, great.
And to create an iconic garment, you know, that's over 5,000 years old, worn by 500 million people around the world, and transform it into something contemporary.
Yeah, stunning.
And
tell us more about the performance on Sunday. What's planned?
So we've got a giant wedding cake, 6 metres by 4 metres, inspired by the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh's royal wedding of 1947.
What's it made of?
Well, that's a surprise.
Oh, OK. How exciting.
Yeah, you can't eat it. That's what I'm saying.
OK,
yeah.
OK, I've got that.
If you do, you'll have to have steel teeth.
OK, OK. Will there be something inside it that we might see later on?
Possibly.
OK.
Yeah. And there are some things that, in a world where we know everything, we decided to keep something slightly back. And so we've got 250 performers from across the nation, from Redcar, Birmingham, from parts of London and the South East, 2 giant puppets. We've got performers in a particular costume. And the idea was to create a party. You know, we've all missed having joyous celebrations through COVID. And so we decided to have a big fat Bollywood wedding.
Fantastic. And I'm guessing that the other areas of the Commonwealth will be reflected as part of your celebration.
Yes, so we looked at, in in the music, we've tried to reflect different parts of the Commonwealth, different dance styles. We've tried to input them as well, and we've taken people from different parts of the community into the 250 people that we've got in our wedding party.
My mother's from Fiji, so it was really important to look at how we reflect the 54 nations of the Commonwealth, particularly the South Asian diaspora that's sort of spread across the Caribbean, the Indian Ocean, the South Pacific, South Asia, and other parts of the world, and how we sort of bring all of that to life, how we bring all of those people together. So it's been an exciting challenge and journey for us.
You mentioned your mum. She's met the Queen, hasn't she?
Yeah, in the early 50s, when the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh did a tour of the South Pacific, they came to Fiji. And like they did on many international tours, they, school children, my mum and her friends, and many of her cousins lined the streets of Suva, waving flags. She was 9 years old. 70-odd years later, our daughter is 9 years old, and she's involved in the pageant. Amazing. And that family memory is really important. You know, there are very few iconic figures in the world today that can bring intergenerational families together, and we like that. You know, in a world which is so polarised, we like the idea of these sorts of memories bringing people together.
Is your mum still with us?
Sadly not. She passed away in the first week of COVID. Right. In March 2020. And every decision that we've made has been through that lens. Every decision about supporting people. We ran a COVID test centre in West London during the 2 years. We've just made sure that we support ourselves, our neighbours, our communities and our freelancers. And this is a sort of party for us as well, in a way.
What are you most looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to the whole event. I mean, I can't wait for the event. But as we've been rehearsing with people, little stories have been coming out about meeting the Queen. And I didn't know my mum met the Queen in Wolverhampton in 1977. She said, I've met the Queen on Dudley Road. And she said, what's happening over there?
That was a silver jubilee, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then we looked it up online. It was the Queen in Wolverhampton. And then they found her in 1977. So I would have been 3 then, probably in the pushchair. But that was really funny. And I've got cousins in the wedding in the section, and they were part of the Queen's Jubilee silver when they were about 7. You know. So all of these stories keep coming up where people have been touched by the Queen in little different journeys.
Amazing.
So what's really exciting for us is to take this wedding party, an Asian wedding, onto the Mall, to have a good time. We've got people from 9 to 79 that will be involved in the pageant in our section. And people have been rehearsing. We found a school track that they're going around to practice.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's going on regularly.
We've got fingers crossed for the weather, of course, haven't we? Have you managed to rehearse with other floats either side of you yet? Or?
No, and that's the magic as well, Kay. You know, it will all come together on the day beautifully, and that's the magic of live events. You know, there's something about over-rehearsing, and there's something about just doing it. I mean, it's all in the planning.
I'm with you on that.
And we kind of have our own little pageant within our pageant, because we have sections coming. We've been very ambitious in what we wanted to do. So we have people coming from Redcar who've never been to London before. We have students coming from Birmingham who've never been to Birmingham before.
Amazing.
And bringing them all together.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Amazing.
I'll give you a special wave on Sunday when you come past where our position is just outside the palace. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Thank you very much. Really looking forward to it. Yep, I will be there on Sunday.
The Queen is about to celebrate her Platinum Jubilee, something that no other monarch has done.
That's 70 years of duty, dedication and service. Sky News will bring you the celebrations and pageantry to mark this historic occasion.
Plus, a very special guest.
I'll be joining the Sky News team as we celebrate the very best of Britain, and we cannot wait. That's the Platinum Jubilee on Sky News.
Meantime, quick look at the weather for you now here on Sky.
warm memories wherever you go. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, the Jubilee weekend will start mainly fine and warm, but today will bring fairly widespread showers again. Showery and chilly start with an early grass frost in parts of the countryside. Any shallow fog patches will soon lift.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
So one day to go until the official Platinum Jubilee celebrations start. Have you made anything special to mark the occasion? And can they live up to these decorations? Here we go. Knitted cakes. Actually, we've got a whole knitted royal family, even a corgi. There's a life-size cake of the Queen. Her stamp has even been etched, as you can see, in the sand here in Northumberland. And Legoland have gone all out, as usual. Buckingham Palace featuring the red arrows here. And here, I'll tell you more about that tree tomorrow. And they're even putting a figure of the Queen on the balcony. Let's hope that we do manage to see her there. So if you are making anything, maybe it's a cake, maybe it's knitting a tea cosy, then do get in touch. You can tweet me directly if you would like to, at @Burley. And as like yesterday, what we'll do is if you send them and put the link underneath, then we will share them with the world. How does that sound? Yep. Still to come on the programme, what about all of this travel chaos? We'll tell you more in just a moment.